Welcome to episode 9 with my brother Don Q. Welcome, Don.
Brother Mighty Fuzz, thank you so much, bro. Thanks for having me on. This is full circle for me. I know you don't remember, but when I was first getting my legs in this digital battlefield, you were one of the first people to go on a live with me and just have an open conversation and just kind of chit chat. We kind of fell, blank because I didn't know what I was doing. But man, thank you for this full circle for me, brother. This is awesome. This is awesome.
You know, Don, man, I remember looking on my feed, and this is before I got with the freedom movement, and you were just like back then positive, and I'm attracted to that. So you've been steady, cool hand Luke, man. You've been cool hand Luke. Don, I bring you on today because we are friends, we are brothers. I can't wait to meet you in person. You have been paying attention and mining the internet on your spare time, speaking positivity, being optimistic, and I love that, and I'm very much attracted to that. So I love to listen to you. And it's about a military operation that is happening in the background. You feel there's a military operation possibly happening in the background in America?
I do, 100%. And we have enough receipts. We have enough evidence. We've had enough things on the timeline, brother, to kind of give us those markers. I was just having this discussion with somebody. When we talk about these things, or you talk about hope for the future, kind of what we're grabbing onto. When it's just breadcrumbs or it's loose foundation, it's hard to get people, to see what you're seeing, to kind of go with the flow. But this isn't that. We have the receipts, we have the communications from our, commander in chief. We have so many people moving and shaking in different places. And, it is deep water if you want to spend the time and do the research and look at these executive orders that are still in place, some that have expired the last month, but why they were extended, 2 years into the Biden regime. Just a lot of questions, a lot of things that need to get answered. It's a deep rabbit hole. And if it interests you, I implore you to go look at it. But yes, from my level, from all my research I've done, and I know a lot of people, like-minded, think the same way. There is definitely a military operation behind the scenes going on, as we see with some news articles that have been coming out recently, letting us know that some information was kept to kind of keep the civil unrest under control. Again, these little breadcrumbs kind of keep you in the mind frame of maybe there's something else happening behind the scenes here. Military is in play, so to speak.
So that I would like, because my view is are most people that just want freedom. And what I try to do with my page, with the people that follow me, at least, I always try to do some type of call to action. People get that mixed up with like either civil unrest with me or the protesting. I actually don't even tell people to protest. I end up going to protest because there's protests, as you know, every week out here. So
Yeah.
I attend some when I hear that there's maybe a presence, but I don't even mean protest because I see it as futile, the being outside screaming with posters and stuff. But what I really mean is to get involved locally and stuff. And as I've been doing that, we've had, obviously, people have conversations. They hear about these military operations, and there's always, and that's what I want to kind of kick back to you. So what we'll do is we will break down what Q is in your eyes, what this military operation is in your eyes, and then we'll go with the most common pushbacks from people that are in the movement that believe in freedom but may not believe in a military operation. How does that sound, brother?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
And I think this will be fruitful because you speak well, my brother. What is this military operation? How did it spawn? How did it begin?
Well, if we want to do the deep dive and we want to go deep down the rabbit hole from everything in the research, and I know a lot of Aeons agree, this really kind of started, back in the '60s with the assassination of JFK, and that global power, or excuse me, that evil global power finally moving its tentacles into place. So it got the helm. It had its operators in the low levels, from the court systems to the law, to the mayors, to the attorneys. We've seen these people moved into place, but with the assassination of JFK, that was where they took the reins, where they were going to now manipulate our reality moving forward. From that time, you had, I believe it was over 140 generals, intelligent people, that got together, and basically they knew something was happening. They knew some evil had moved into place, and they started to make moves to counter that, to try to protect the good, the innocent, and to protect our future. But they knew it was going to be a long road out because of the programming that we had been put under. Again, the spells from Hollywood, from the politicians, from everything in our society and in our economy was playing a spell into how our programming, how we ingested our reality, um, and to break us free from that wasn't going to be easy. And there's been a few markers along the line. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there's been a few markers in the plan. There's been different times when they were, good was going to make a move on evil, and for whatever reason, we were just not able to. The timing was off. The players backed out. They decided not to move forward. Whatever it may be. Flash forward to now, where we see again. Look at our reality. Look at the things that are playing out from, if we want to flash back in our timeline to 2001, 9/11, that was a pop moment for a lot of people. That event taking place really woke people up from their programming. It took a little bit of time. You and I discussed this yesterday. You couldn't talk about the United States government being involved in anything to do with that for at least a couple years afterwards. And if you thought that way, or if you had any questions, you were quickly labeled a tin hat, conspiracy theory put in a corner. And then flash forward, over 20 years later, it's almost crazy to think that the government didn't have a hand in it, that there wasn't something that we're not told there, that the 9/11 Commission wasn't factual. But it's taken 20 years to deprogram us, to allow us to address that, allow us to see it. So flash back to the Q plan. The years and time that it's spent, like I said, we've been there. We've had the pop moments where we were gonna, where the good guys thought we were ready, and for whatever reason we're not. We weren't. And then flash forward to now, where the white hats are doing everything they can. That's why we kind of use the reference a chessboard. It is like a chess game. The black pieces, the dark side of the board, still gets to make some moves, still gets to pretend like they're not in checkmate. But from everything we've seen, especially the last 6 years, checkmate has been in place, and now it's a deprogramming of the masses. Because I've figured this out in my research and looking at this from a certain lens. We are the boogeyman. We are the bad man in the night. And when I say that, we are collectively, our thoughts, our mind, men go mad in herds type mentality. The masses are what drives this evil. And with our programming and with our conditioning, the propaganda we've been fed, we're unable to see the light. We walk around in a room in darkness and we're not able to see the light. We're not able to see the players, the rhyme or reason of why things are happening. We were just falling victim to these false flags. Again, that's the black side, the dark side of the chessboard moving. But the white hats have begun their plan, have helped us out from the beginning. I know I'm going long and stretching this, and I apologize, but
I think it's needed. I think it's needed. I think you're doing well, because this is very new to some people, and there's people that have heard this, and we'll get into what their comments on. So essentially, let's just so far what you said. This goes back to Kennedy. Probably could even go back further, but to Kennedy, you started with. There are good people in the military and bad people in the military.
Yes.
After Kennedy died, there was definitely these black hats that had an agenda that worked all the way up to 2001. And 2001 is how they really revealed themselves to the world. Is that what you're saying?
More or less, yes. And Fuzz, I talked to you about this yesterday, and I need to apologize while we're in the middle of this, but I've done so many interviews and so many podcasts where I've had to mute that side of my belief system, that deep water that I see kind of going on, to not lose people, to not lose the audience. So I apologize about that, because I seem to be glossing over it. But there is some key events and key things that, because you are right, there are people that are new to this that kind of need to understand where we're coming from this. And when I say these things, this part of the tale, there are receipts, there are plenty of markers for this for you to go see. One thing that we kind of glossed over, right, coming out of JFK, was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was the second president that the White Hats approached to kind of fix things. The first president was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was taken out by the deep state. The White Hats were not ready for the deep state moves at that time, and they easily took Nixon out of place. Well, the next chance that the White Hats had was Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan decided to take on the deep state. He signed on the dotted line. He said he would work with the White Hats until the very time that it came to do the right thing. Ronald Reagan chose his wife over the plan. His love for his wife, the relationship that they had, he didn't. Basically, what had happened was there was an assassination attempt on Reagan a few months prior to this, before the plan took action. That was the deep state's last chance to kind of get at the head of the snake, and that scared Miss Reagan, and she, him and Mr. Reagan and him had a conversation, and it turns out he didn't want to move forward with the plan. He thought there was too much at risk. And the funny thing with that story, right, that karma part of it is, not too long after he leaves office as president, he is struck with dementia, with mental illness, right? So the one thing that he gave up, his chance.
He did change
Yeah,
after he left. That's right. That's
yeah.
true.
Well, it's just wild to see that
Yeah.
at that moment, where God presented something with him, where you could be a sacrifice for the greater good. He chose a selfish path. He chose his wife, and then it was removed from him after he left office. As far as his mind slipped away. So that was a very intricate part of the story. And then we flash forward into the '90s with Bill Clinton in office. Obviously, with George Bush Sr. in office, the White Hats were, that's when the White Hats were the most concerned. That's when moves, counter moves, everything was taking place. When Bill Clinton comes into office, they had finally had enough. They saw the plan moving out. They saw how they were controlling elections. They saw the integration of electronic tabulators, everything that was taking place as far as evil closing this program around us, the reality around us. The White Hats needed to make a move. They were going to make a move. And again, the White Hats, just like we could think of all the Black Hats, there's different fractions of them. There's the political side. There's the military side. We have the intelligence side. Same with the Black Hats. Same with the White Hats. Well, at the White Hats in the mid '90s during Bill Clinton's time, the military side of the White Hats was going to make a move. They were going to make a move. There was no change in the plan. They wanted to rip the Band-Aid off, and they were going to deal with the civil unrest, whatever that looked like. And of course, when we think about those things, that military mindset, we can understand that, right? We can understand let the bombs fall and we'll clean up the dust afterwards. While you have other cooler heads at the table that were like, look, if we move forward with this plan, if we do what you're saying, and their plan was to basically seize the White House while Bill Clinton was in place, make him sign an order that basically gave over cognitive government to the people in place, forfeiting their power. And again, have that presence of the Navy SEALs, the military in place, so it wouldn't be so chaotic. There was cooler heads at the table that said, no, we can't move forward with this plan like this. It's easy to talk about these plans and these maneuvers on the table, but when you're talking about the masses, again, the mass programming out there, it's not a one size fits all. It's not a rip the Band-Aid off and everybody's going to be okay. So in the protection of life and the masses going mad, the plan was diverted, moved out, and obviously communication, different plans put into place. But that's where Trump comes into the mix. Trump was, and I've talked about this a lot. And again, this is just from my research, my deep diving I've done. Trump was the junkyard dog. He dealt with these people. He worked with them. He did deals. He's ran in the same circles as some of these evil people that we only claim to know their names, but we really don't know the elite. We don't know the control structure. Trump was our junkyard dog that had experienced that, lived that life. But at the end of the day, he was America first. That's why the White Hats came to him. That's why the White Hats decided to move the plan forward with kind of that deception piece, right? Trump's always been the deception piece because he was part of the evil side. Having him be a player or a person at the head of the snake for us, it confused the dark hats. They didn't know which way to move, what exactly was happening. That's why I think, again, from my research, everybody tied to the Q movement, the White Hats, were letting this plan move out and letting the Trump move into position because they knew, further down the road, it was a better plan. More lives were saved from this. Again, I know I'm going long with this, but just that deep story of Q, there's plenty of receipts and plenty of information all along this timeline that I just quickly blanket over. And that's really important for a lot of people because a lot of people like to tie Q and the White Hats to Trump when actually this is just a part of the plan. It's a part of the mission. It's just a next
really
move.
Important, bro. I think that's really important because there's a lot of people that just the Trump. He's really a polarizing character. People love him, like look at him like Jesus, and it's a very unhealthy relationship. And what's funny? None of them really even know about the stuff you're talking about. It's like a political Jesus. It's very weird. And on the other side, if you say their name, I said this on the phone to you yesterday, and I live in New York City, right? I see it. You say Trump, and they lose their mind. Like he's technically off the surface, been out of power for 4 years, right?
Yep.
And people still are like, if you say his name, they lose their mind more than Biden, even though Biden is literally ruining the country. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or who we believe Biden is. So all right. So at this point, Trump is we got up to 2001. So 2001 was what their last attempt for this bring in this new world order, and this is why the Patriot Act and all these things for surveillance. That was
More so think of 2001 as they made a move on the chessboard that they didn't want to make, but after they lost the piece, they needed to cover their footprints because, again, think about this. If the White Hats implemented a plan, the slow awakening, the great awakening, right, to break us from our programming, instead of ripping the Band-Aid off, they needed to break this down. That's one side that evil doesn't know. Evil doesn't know mental manipulation. They don't know psychology. They're not really good. They know the simple tactics, right? Fear, anxiety, distrust. They instill all of jealousy, envy, all of these quick little, mind tricks. That's all that evil has. So as the White Hat started to unroll this plan, and yes, 2001 was a very intricate piece of waking the masses up. I look at that. I look at events like 2001 as the Dark Hats trying to cover their footprints because they knew as time shook out, if they didn't correct these things, if Building 7 didn't disappear, if the evidence that was in that building was ever to come to surface, they would have no answers for it. And the programming in our timeline would be quickly sped up. So the only thing they can do is try to slow us down. They can't stop us from waking up from our programming. The only thing they can do is try to slow us down, throw us down rabbit holes, divide and conquer type mentality. So when I think back to September 11th, I know it was part of their plan, and I know there was a greater plan moving out. But I think with the White Hats in place and then everything that shook out, and again, it wasn't till 2004 that Loose Change came out, that the real programming from what had happened was able to get shattered and people were able to express and think differently. That's one of the most intricate parts in 1984 mentality or any of that stuff is you have to break the glass. If the glass is still present, if the mindset, if the story, the 9/11 Commission, all of that's still in place with no rebuttal, no evidence to counter, you can have all the conversations you want to have with people. The words will always butt up against the glass. You need something to shatter that glass. You need something to break that thought process and allow a different mindset and a different filter to go and re-examine these things. And that's what Loose Change was for 2001, for rather 9/11 event. We needed these markers along the way, and every event since, you've gotten to see that, and it's been amplified tenfold, right? Like I said, with something like 9/11 in our timeline, it took 4 or 5 years for us to really process and to really open up and come on these black mirrors and start having conversations about something wasn't right. There might have been more at hand. Well, look at the events that happen now. It's literally hours after a false flag happens. You have citizen journalists, truthers, freedom fighters already changing the narrative, already giving it, and it's not just in the sense that they're spinning the story and giving a different perspective or their feelings. They're actually bringing factual information to the table to where you can process all of it, take it in, and understand our reality a lot different than ever before. So, again, I know I keep jumping all over the place, but going back to that 2001, where it can be taken as either or, right? That's an evil event that took place, but the White Hats were able to spin that event and help us along our programming to use it as a catalyst to help us wake up. Because, like I said, for a lot of people thinking back to that event and that time, we remember what it was like. We remember the conversations we couldn't have in the years or months afterwards. You couldn't say that there was anything other than, some boogeymans in the Middle East that did this on some planes. There was no other.
And that's why, and I just want to real quick segue because I want to make sure we get everything in the time thing. And speaking of questioning things, this man here, along with Breb Shiesty, Script Keeper, Joker, I'm not sure. I think maybe TX. I'm not sure, but all called out and this is what he's talking about, guys. The Tim Ballard Sound of Freedom, something that would be alongside this White Hat plan, and people that are in that mind state, they can fall under this Tim Ballard Sound of Freedom. And I just want to say publicly that these people that are doing the research, like Don, like Breb, like Script, like Joker, called out Tim Ballard. How'd you come about that? What made you look into the Tim Ballard? Well, we were at the height of July 4th, and people are waking up to human trafficking. We've been waiting forever for this. What made you say, wait a minute, hold on? What was the catalyst to that?
Well, and thank you for asking that, Fuzz, because it's an important message that I want to send to everybody out there. I'm a blue collar father of five. I'm in the slave debt paradigm like everybody else. I'm working. I get caught up in the circus and bread entertainment. But along this journey, I've kept my filters, right? I've kept my eyes open. I've kept my mind tight. And I didn't want to be deceived even by our own side. I'm not biased. I know, you come on my page, I'm Trump 2024, right? I can have a certain mindset. That's the way that I went into Sound of Freedom, because just like you illustrated, for I think it was 4 years, 2018 is where we first heard it. So 4 years before it was released, it was this marketing campaign, this promotion. All the truthers, all the freedom fighters were tied to it because we saw Hollywood rejecting a movie that might be able to bring some truth to the masses and break that glass for people to understand these conversations that we're having when we say it's all about the kids. So they're able to perceive exactly how deep that rabbit hole is and exactly what we were talking about. So for 4 years, we saw this marketing, ploy by Sound of Freedom. And then on opening day, just like a lot of truthers, a lot of freedom fighters, I was excited that it was at the movie theater. I bought the ticket with my wife and I went and I watched the movie for myself, front row with a packed audience. It was about 15 minutes into the movie. I was just sitting there frozen. My wife kind of taps me. She's real. We're real plugged in. She knows when something's up, and she kind of taps me and she, what's going on? I was like, can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe what I'm seeing with my own eyes. This movie it's not groundbreaking. It's not showing anything different. It's the boogeyman's across the border and he has brown skin, and that's who we should be afraid of. So it was no politicians, it was no bankers, it was no local city council members that are taking advantage of your Holiday Inn Express. It was nothing shattering or groundbreaking on the ground floor that just really got me excited the way that they had built it. So I left the movie theater. My wife, was crying. She was, the movie was powerful for her. She's calling my sister, just like, you got to go see this movie. But the whole time I'm driving home and something wasn't sitting right with me. Something wasn't resonating with my soul. I was like, this isn't it. This isn't what I spent 4 years marketing and promoting on my page. The rabbit holes that we've gone down, the evidence we've seen, whether you want to buy into the insurance file on certain people's computers or all these things, whatever it may be, there's some very deep rabbit holes, some very strong evidence that we have that needed to be addressed, or at least needed to have a little bit, punch through that glass a little bit, something a little more than, like I said, the boogeyman's in a third world country and you should be
Right.
afraid of him, and so again, I'm driving down the road and my wife's happy, and I get home and I immediately take out my phone and I start doing my research. First person I called, brother, was a local law enforcement agent here. I won't say any names or anything. He's a good family friend of mine. He had worked with Tim Ballard when Tim Ballard was part of Homeland Security 10 years prior to this. So I knew he had some history, and I had never asked him about Tim Ballard at all. I'd never said his name to this gentleman, not a word. So I come home from the movie that night and I call my friend. I'm like, hey, I know you've mentioned that you've spent some time with him. What's your take on him? He didn't have a single good thing to say, right? And he's like, look,
Wow.
Don, I'm not going to say I know anything bad about him, but I'm going to tell you, in law enforcement, we just knew something wasn't right, that the good guys, rather, the guys that were in it for the real reasons, didn't want to associate with him, didn't want to have anything to do with him. So that was kind of the first phone call that led me down that rabbit hole. And then obviously just doing the investigative work, tying back to the LDS church, understanding in our world, who the LDS church is on that level. It just started falling apart really quickly. And I wanted to be so quick to put it out on social and kind of make these videos and put my neck on the line, because, at the beginning there, I was, everybody thought I was blackpilling and I was losing it. But I wanted people to know that I was upset that I had allowed the programming to grab hold,
So
and
it
I
was you
ran with.
too. It was you too. You were including yourself.
Yes,
You were promoting the movie. Like everybody
yes,
was excited for it. And because we're all this is this is the blind spot we all have. We're all salivating for this moment of the world finding out the elephant in the room with the human trafficking. And in that moment, that euphoric, supposed to be euphoric moment, you were able to have that sound thought, no pun intended, and be able to see through that this is one big money ploy.
it was. Yep. And it
And
broke my heart. Go ahead.
No, just that, you know, and what you were saying, like what you and Breb and I knew something was up. If you notice, because I know I was watching, like I am behind. I like people don't understand when I say I'm from New York. Like people think like I'm from Long Island or upstate. I live in the city. I'm around people that don't think like us, bro, all day
Yep.
long. I go to the store with people that support Antifa, BLM, socialism, you know, like all this Marxism. I go to
Yeah.
the bodega with them, right? So I know, and I start to see random people. There's this Spanish girl I know that I go to the store and I see, and she goes, you know, I watched The Sound of Freedom, and you know, I don't know, man. I didn't even know this was happening, and I'm like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so that would give even a reason for you to put your guard down. But like I said, you gentlemen put your guard up and said, hey, let's look into this. And I watched the backlash you went through, bro. I seen it. That's why I even did a video for you. You know, I was like, nah, like, are you kidding me? Like, well, you calling him they were calling you a pedo sympathizer or whatever the fuck they were
Yeah.
calling you, and I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, we ain't gonna start this. I know,
No.
Don. Like, we ain't gonna
Yep.
do that.
No, and like I said, that broke my heart. The friends, the family that turned against me. But that's one thing that I promised everybody on this Black Mirror. You know, I have my Nebuchadnezzar. I have my kids that I get to pray with at night and get my batteries charged. So when I come and face this world, when I come back on this Black Mirror, I'll give you everything I got. I'll give you my real emotions, the real me, how I'm seeing things play out, the research that I found. Take it or leave it. I don't need anyone to follow what I'm saying. You can research it. You can debate me or bring a counter conversation. I love the iron sharpens iron, but more so, I want to show people that you don't be afraid to express your opinion. Don't be afraid to talk about things that you've seen in reality. That even when the masses are going with it, I mean, and there's obviously polarizing subjects right now, but even when the masses are going with it, if you see something that doesn't resonate with you, if you see something that's not right, and again, not personal feelings, not personal for Don, this was something that I saw in a conditioning of the people. I didn't want people to continue to think that the problem was in a third world country and that our politicians, our bankers, our CEOs are not tied to this child trafficking industry and the horrific crimes. I didn't want to be a part of promoting something that wasn't going to wake people up to that next level, that was going to keep them in that same programming rut. That's been my biggest thing, brother, is waking up to the programming. To me, nothing else matters. The physical world is separate from the spiritual battle that we're going through right now. The physical world's almost on autopilot. You get in your vehicle, you go to work, you go to the grocery store, right? Everything's on autopilot. We know how to function and move in that world like no other. We've done it since birth.
Yeah.
That's our world. That's our reality, this world, the digital battlefield, the spiritual front. This is new for us, and moving and shaking on here is a lot different. It's a lot harder than you can think. I.e., getting attacked for Sound of Freedom, it can knock you off your horse. It can really
We
cause emotions. Go ahead.
we need better. That's and believe it or not. So when I'm sitting here thinking about how I'm going to do this questioning, because the following questions, I just want to demonstrate how people like me and you kind of see things very similar, and we're supposed to see some things differently. That's why we're
Yes.
human, right? We're not supposed
Yes.
to be robots, and you know, but people need to be able to have a conversation with being able to see things differently, or we're not learning anything, or we can go to war with anybody. And I got to be honest, you know, and I want to call this out in the freedom movement in general. Like in New York City, there's people that are for freedom. They like RFK, you know, they're big RFK. You know, I know once election time comes, RFK. I have my personal views with RFK. I'm not the type of person that will show a picture of him with Hillary Clinton and they go, oh, he's bad, because you can find a picture with Trump with Hillary Clinton, right? Like, I'm not
Yes.
so much that guy, but
Yes.
I'm more what have your stances been forever, right? And that's kind of my thing, and I try to formulate it that way. People here are like, oh wait, you like RFK? Oh no, I'm not messing with you. Oh, you like Trump? I'm not messing with you. It's like off with their head.
Yes.
And it's like we agree on 9 other things, but we don't agree on this, which is pivotal in this time. I want to say it's pivotal in this time, but I just think we should be able to have healthier conversations. I think that's what's needed in this time. I know a lot of people that do a lot of groundwork that hate Trump. but are the most patriotic people I've ever met in my life. Some of them are women.
Yep.
It's been an honor to stand next to them. They think Trump is part of, they think, and I'm going to get into those questions because I get stumped sometimes. So I want to run them by you publicly. Maybe you can help me out. But, they feel that the whole thing, the whole Q thing is to keep everybody sedated as they go in with their real plan. They're going to say they're fighting the New World Order. They beat the New World Order, and they're going to go, oh, this is what we really wanted, a different New World Order. So, which we'll get into. But the point is, I know people in the Q movement that would stop talking to them, even though every single day they're doing actions. They're not online going, see, I'm right about Trump. They're really giving everything they got for $0, but they hate fucking Trump. You bring up Trump, they won't shut up, So healthier conversations, and that's why I am so gun-ho on keeping unity, brother. It's so important because, hey, if Trump does do everything that, the whole world would want, right? Like if this happens, we're just going to be right about that. Okay. But at least they were wrong about that one thing, but at least they were trying to fight for all our children, and they're just wrong. You see what I'm saying? And
Yes.
I try to look down the road. Like, are we going to be fighting then? Because we'll all be happy then. You see what I'm saying? Like, and it's just the infighting. It really just mind boggles me. And then people try to dox each other and smear each other, and the word shill, forget about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been called the shill.
Dropped everywhere. It's to be expected. It's to be expected, brother. It's old programming, as a lot of people have woken up to the truth, the freedom fighters, like you're saying, the patriots, God bless them all. We think that somehow this is going to be a perfect fit as far as our programming, right? We're going to wake up to the small things that plague us and we'll get to the big things, right? Like if it has some system, for a lot of people, they don't even realize sometimes we wake up to the big things, big topics, big issues, the pop moments that really help us think differently. But there's still a lot of things in our programming we have to correct together. And i.e., one of them is how easily our emotions are driven for division. We, just like you're saying, we can easily pick a side. It's in our programming. It's almost this tribal mindset since recorded man history that we're going to pick a side. We're going to have a dog in the fight that we root for. Some people go for the underdog. Some people, need the Titan for the victory type thing. It's in our programming, but as we're moving along this consciousness timeline, and that's what I want people to know. And I know I go all over the place with the Q stuff. That's a real personal stuff for me because I've done the research. I've spent the hours. I've found things that have resonated with me that allow me to continue on this timeline, but communicating it to people or getting up on the stage and talking about what I've read and how this timeline's working is really difficult to do. It's the same thing with these things, with the small things. I don't get upset at anybody if they hate Trump. I actually prefer it. I don't need anybody to agree because, like you said, your actions will speak louder than words. And along this timeline, as we're moving in this consciousness, we're going to realize the trigger words or the groups or boxes that we kept trying to fit each other in really don't matter. And they're self-induced, and they're that mindset that men go herd and men go mad in herds type mentality is really problematic for our overall well-being together. And I think we're starting to realize that. We're starting to figure that out because you're seeing it from the conversations. You're seeing it, matter of fact, I think it was 3 days ago, King Jesus News was live, and he was going to a rally there in Staten Island, and it was early, so they had the opposing side, right, the pro-migrant side there, just a few people, and the anti-migrant side, there was a few people that walked up, but the conversations that were being had, and yes, it got heated for a second there, no heavy conversation, but it was a quick moment to see where we're getting better with each other. We're not out to quickly divide, hold a sign, and start shouting at each other. We're interested in what the other side has to say. Why do you believe that? Why do you think that? If you're just going to repeat CNN mainstream media talking points, well, you're going to lose us right there, and we're going to have to kind of get combative and, hey, you can't listen to CNN. But nevertheless, cooler heads are going to win the day, and we're starting to see it.
The same thing with Fox, right? The same thing with Fox too. On the other side, if you go outside, you haven't looked past Fox. because we do have actual natural talking points that can come from the individual that make a lot of sense. If people just don't watch the news, we can all assess. I mean, people are now learning because it's on their doorstep now, right? We must show them, right? The whole you got to show them.
Yes.
And you see this. Wait a second. I know I'm supposed to say Democratic talking points, but this is kind of little. This doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
And then the worst part is, and I try to tell my brothers and sisters in Staten Island, this is the right wing in them, that they want you to fight with them. They that's the trap. Every decision we're making is either towards a revolution or a civil war.
Yep.
The powers that be, the black cats at least, want us to go into civil war, because as long as we're in civil war, we're not handling the revolutionary war. I understand it like macros like that. So my decision making is always, that's why I always say, oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the government. People hate me. Oh, it's the government. It's the government. Today, I was constipated. It's the fucking government. I'm telling you, you know, it's I try to always keep it there. So it's not, yo, it's the Democrats, it's the liberals, it's the Republicans, it's, you know, and by doing that, it kind of unifies everybody. But the issue really is the neocons and the neoliberalism, and it's those two. They're two wings of the same bird. It's cliche, but it's the truth, that are protecting this old, like you say, paradigm system. And it's us, the free-minded people that are trying to break through, brother.
Well, and that's what I mean, brother. When I know I was going along with all these different stories, but that's all I can do, right? And in trying to understand where we're at in this matrix, that's all you can do sometimes, is just pull back and let the videos play, right? Like I said, I jumped on King Jesus live, or I jump on some other lives. Let them play and just sit back and watch. When you're not seeing the advocating for violence, when you're seeing the advocating for discussion, or, hey, tell me why you think this way, do know that we've progressed a very long way down the timeline. Evil's control on us is diminishing. The programming is falling away. That's why I just talk about that little incident. Not that it was anything big. It's just to see collectively the masses, the people in the middle, and individually we can all feel it, but to see the masses collectively in the middle moving and shaking differently, walking down your grocery aisle and seeing somebody read the ingredients list on the back. These are all markers for the programming falling away. Not, so back to a point you kind of illustrated before. I know there's people that think, we're sitting on our hands and Trump's leading us into a dark
we'll get
avenue.
Into that next. Yeah, we'll get into that next.
Yeah, but and I don't want to touch on that, but these are markers that our programming isn't going that way, that things are actually changing if you slow down and step out and actually observe them from a, that 60,000 degree view. There's a lot of positive things happening that, I'd like to give credit to, every chance I get on this Black Mirror to talk about it. That's why people, oh, Don, you're always trying to sell hope. And I'm not trying to sell hope. It's just the individual moments, the actions of the seconds, they can be very traumatizing. You can get caught up in good, bad, evil, all that stuff. But stepping out and looking where humanity is progressing to right now, we're progressing on a beautiful timetable. It is moving very slow. I'm sure a lot of people would hope it would speed up. But I think that how fast we're moving is almost plays into our punishment side, right? Like, we've all contributed to this evil reality we live in, whether it was, your life before or one foot in the fire type mentality. We've all contributed to where we're at in the programming. That's why Uncle Don doesn't claim to be a doctor or a psychologist in the sane asylum. I'm a patient with everybody else. We're just trying to wake each other up together. And I'm telling you, from everything I've seen, there's something else happening in the programming. I said those little markers, those little stories are good tidbits to grab onto.
I agree, brother. And I want to just say, and that'll be the Danny Tanner moment after we go through these questions of little pushback, that at the end, that's what I see. What you just said, and you articulated it so well, brother, is the breaking of the paradigm on how we make decisions. I will admit, I don't think this is, I think this is going to need a lot more time. I know everybody keeps, in June, this is going to happen. In July, this is going to happen. But as much as I look forward to it, honestly, every time, I'm realizing you see the wisdom in why it didn't happen in 2001, 2002, that we have a lot of work to do. This has to be collective, or we will go into civil war. We'll go into a dark time that could take generations to cure. But to your point, I see that's why I even pay attention to some of it. Okay, so we're gonna go into some pushback. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So Project Trust. We'll start with that one. Let's start the easy one. Project Trust. Are you familiar with Project Trust?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Project Trust, just for those that don't know what
Yeah,
Project Trust is. All right. Project Trust, back in the day in Russia in the early 1900s, they wanted to bring in communism into Russia. So they told them that there was a military operation to have the people at bay, don't worry. And the military operation was lying to them, keeping them calm as they overthrew the current government. And then they brought in communism, which the communism was there for 100 years after. So that's what Project Trust was. With the threat of communism at our doorstep, and with this mass migration into the country, the pushback I get when I pay attention to it, and I bring up certain things about this awakening process, because I'm like, why would they awaken us? The pushback is Project Trust, that they're gonna put all the people into the country, start a civil war, and then bring in a resolve. What's your take on that?
Well, obviously I disagree with that. But one thing I want people to understand, just again in the psychology, Operation Trust did take place in the United States, and it ran all the way up until 2015. That's what people really need to understand is our government convinced us that
Hold
carrying
on,
our
say that again. Say that. Say that again, bro.
Now we're in deep water. Get your life vest on. Get
I
your
like
life
that
vest on.
one. I like it.
Well, you know, the premise, if you go read Operation Trust, and how it was pushed out on the people, how they were not able to combat it. Again, one thing I remember when I pushed back against Operation Trust was, this is a different time, i.e., just how you're hearing my voice and hearing us right now. This black mirror is a ripple in the system. It can be used for control, obviously, and it can send a lot of misinformation. But this is one mechanism that shatters Operation Trust and its foundation, because now you would have communications between people that were supposed to be isolated and not have communication. Because again, with Operation Trust, you needed a mindset, you needed a programming instilled on people that marched them forward, right? That's exactly what happened to the United States. Look at all of the atrocities, all of the crimes we've committed on this globe, carrying our flag while me and you and everybody else, listen to our music and we're happily entertained at the circus, at the Coliseum. Our flag was carried into other countries, and horrific crimes on humanity, things that we carry that weight. A lot of people, I wasn't a part of there is no you weren't a part of anything. We fuel this machine. We
paid the
drove
taxes. We paid for it.
That's right. That's right.
We all got blood on our hands, bro. We all got blood on our hands.
There's only so many seats in the Coliseum, baby. And if you were there, if you were entertained, if you walked those shoes, and I know my brother Fuzz, we've all come from different avenues when we were younger kids, running with the music industry, whatever it may be. We've all contributed to the events going on in the Coliseum. We've all played a part in contributing to this Operation Trust. So now that it's broken, I understand why people can easily flip it on its head and think we're falling under that. But it's because you're coming out of that programming. If you allow yourself to look at the things around you, you'll quickly put together pieces that wouldn't make sense if it was Operation Trust, right? And we can go through them all the way through, psychology-wise, physical-wise, everything that we're experiencing. Operation Trust wouldn't have encompassed. Evil has no value or no purpose to uplift a society just to recapture them or put them under their thumb again. And we've seen this over and over again. We've seen this with countries, continents that have been conquered. You can go read about it in books. There's a philosophy and a way that the system has to move, because again, humans are born free spirit. We're born with that God fire in us. You can be born in Palestine. You can be born in Australia. You can still feel oppression. You still know when something's wrong at a child state, right? I have a 2-year-old child. My child knows when I'm disciplining and I'm upset, and knows when I'm happy with her. They can feel these emotions, and I didn't need to instill any of these things in my child. They know it was a God-given gift to them. Humanity knows when we're, running under a program that is about to close the door on us. We start to get these fluttering feelings, these, our soul pinging in us, if you will, where things just aren't right. I really employ the people that have really paid attention to what's going on. If you've spent time in the trenches the last 5, 6 years, really intaking and outtaking everything that's going on in our reality, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that spent the time and research to agree with you that we're moving into a darker program, that they're about to flip the script on us, that Operation Trust is in motion right now. You'll be hard pressed to find somebody. Now, people that are on the outside that don't want to dive down the rabbit hole too far, they're getting caught up in the mainstream media narrative, the political propaganda, just everything happening around us. Yes, I'm sure you could be 50-50, one foot in the fire, feeling like, Operation Trust is taking place right now, and all these Q-tards are pushing it and driving it, and capturing more and more of our brothers and sisters. If that's your mindset, you need to bring evidence and proof to the table. And I'd love to have a conversation with anybody, because you'll be hard pressed to find that proof. You'll be hard pressed to find that evidence. Yes, there's evil events happening, but look at the outcome, right? This is something we've learned from, a lesson I believe
100%.
from God. We can't judge an action by good or evil, right? God flooded the earth, but the outcome, what was most important. And that's one thing you need to remember here is we can say, oh, the white hats are letting bad things happen, or they're letting good things happen, or if they were really in power, this wouldn't be happening. At the end of the day, self-responsibility is a part of this, knowing that we contributed to a lot of things that we're seeing that are happening around us. We played a part in, no matter if you did not, doing nothing is taking action, right? We've heard that all our life, right? Like, oh, I won't do anything. I didn't take no part. Well, that's you're taking action by not doing anything. So
100%. Don,
we contributed to where we're at.
The second softball question will be Project Warp Speed. I personally know, as well as the people in New York City, there's more people on top of each other. After they got the shots, they magically cancers came back, people died. Trump deployed these. What's your having Fauci part of his administration? I believe that was to expose him. I think everything has to be up front, but the shot. What's your take on him allowing that shot to go out and having all these people either harmed, killed, or will be dying in the next few years?
So I think that's going to play out in front of us. Operation Warp Speed for me was easy to understand. We collectively, again, people don't like to think about this in terms of the masses, but your child wasn't born and didn't reach 18 years of age until there was 72 of these pharmaceutical shots in his body. So from birth to 18 years old, collectively, and we're talking in the 90 percentile, Americans were given this, these shots from big pharma. So coming into this, and we all know where Trump stood with HCQ and ivermectin, saying at the beginning, and everybody attacked the man. Oh, he's not a doctor. What the hell is he doing? At the same time, showing you the optics that Fauci and the other lady were not echoing these same things. So now you got to see the divide. And then with Operation Warp Speed, that was the programming that woke us up. I mean, brother, I'm glad you're saying this. I hate to go long on this. I apologize, but
I know it's hard. It's hard, bro.
This is very important though, because if you were not in the or the V fight for years prior to this, and know how lonely that road was, you wouldn't understand the programming that broke with Operation Warp Speed. And what I mean by that is, and I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole because I could talk forever on this because it's very, very personal to me. Look at the percentage of parents that are not their children now coming out of Warp Speed because of what we witnessed, because of what we saw. I mean, it's every news article I read. For doctors, what's the right word I'm trying to think of? Nurses, everybody. What's the one for the kids? God, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Pediatrician.
Pediatricians. There we go. The pediatrician administration and boards. They're all putting out these news articles and hit pieces saying how much percentage of the parents have dropped off of getting their kids schedules, and how they're going to lean on the school system to implement it harder so it leans back on again, all of this programming. We wouldn't have these discussions. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Operation Warp Speed. And a lot of people don't give it the credit it deserves. But like I said, I was on that side of the fence before Operation Warp Speed, and I got to see it afterwards. I promise you, the world we live in now is 10 times different
Hey,
after Operation Warp Speed, and I'm grateful for
on
it.
bro, look how many people only got the shot this time.
Yeah.
Now look in the second round, there's only 2% of Americans. So there's the proof in
98,
what you're saying.
98%
98% did
Americans.
not. Right there is the proof in what you're saying. So I will say that's a great point. We spoke yesterday, and that's why I asked you that question about you feel that it will not get kinetic in the cities, or if it does get kinetic, that it'll be resolved quickly. Where is your take? You don't think it'll be kinetic at all?
Like I said, it's dependent on our brothers and sisters that are hearing my voice right now. We have to do the job to break the narrative. We have to do the job to bring the truth, to have the hard conversations. Get on this Black Mirror. Doesn't matter if you have 5 people or 500 people on the live. Voice your opinion, voice the research that you found, put it out there. Yes, you might not be right. Yes, sometimes we swing and we don't get it right. We don't have production teams, we don't have research, all this. We're literally just blue collar slave labor people out here trying to fight an evil multi-billion-dollar empire, and we're kicking ass right and left down here. So just it's going to depend on how engaged all of us stay. If we don't get caught up in the entertainment, if we don't get caught with the distractions that are definitely coming down the road, and I know you and I have talked about them, if we can stay engaged and really fight this, I think we've already shown from little spurs, little events, Staten Island, different things. We're ready, and we're cool, calm, and collected. We're not going to let them push us into violence. We're not going to let them push us into a rabbit hole or a box where they can paint us black, evil, if you will, and label us that way for the rest of the world to ingest. People are very, very smart of how they move and operate now, and they're breaking the narrative. They're having the hard conversations. As long as that keeps happening, I don't think evil grabs a hold. I don't think there's any civil unrest. I think we can defeat this because our programming is shed away so much.
Okay. All right. I definitely believe that looking at New York City, and I'm only talking about New York City, guys. I'm not gonna talk about any other city because I do live here, and because everything's so heightened, and what I just watched happen with Israel and Palestine. I see that there are people that we can't account for, people that don't see things like me and you, Don. And I want to first say I hope what you just said happens. Unfortunately, if I had to call it, if there was a gun to my head, I think it will. So there will be unrest, and it really, like you said, it's really up to us how much we give into it too, because now we have two problems, right?
Yes.
The military. The National Guard has been protecting the migrants. I heard right side say that the whole migrant situation is optics. I want to first say publicly, and I can't wait to have right side on. Right side, you are welcome on my platform. I know you're even more optimistic than Don. Let's get you on. Let's get your point of view. That's how we have conversations. I just want to say, though, in New York City, there's a brother by the name of Leroy Press. Leroy Press is literally standing there every single night. Me and him like to light fireworks. We don't get to light fireworks because he's outside watching these migrants come in every night, 7 nights a week. He's out there watching the buses come in, different nationalities coming in. People. Doesn't mean they're bad. But at some point, this is going to spill over. And I'm going to pray that New York City doesn't have civil unrest. With the National Guard moving into Staten Island, I know they're not worried about the protesters. So me and you have probably, without saying it, we can look at each other right now and go, we can think what's going to happen. But with them moving, with all these concerns of a terrorist attack, I know this is long-winded, but I posted 2 weeks ago. I wasn't talking about the migrants. I was saying that the NYPD knew of terrorist threats that were happening. This is before Israel and Palestine, guys. They were already concerned about something. So there could be chatter, right? This is a great time. We're right there. New York City's right there. It's very hot right now. New York City's very hot. With all that, and if civil unrest happen, we might be in this martial law. Part of this Q story is that we go into martial law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Yes.
What's your take on martial law?
So there's two parts to it, right? There's kind of a civil calm martial law where the military moves into place and kind of continues that functions of the society, i.e., police force, road check block, anything like that. And then there's the civil unrest side, right? So city's chaotic, gangs are running rampant, and military needs to come in and squash it, much like we saw with the LA riots where they let them run for 3 days and then they decided to come in, right? That was a good pre-marker for that. Like I said, I haven't talked much about the immigration stuff. I want people to know that I'm on the ground floor. I live in a border town. I'm actually 3 miles from the Mexican border right now, from the front step of my door. I've lived it my entire life. I have friends and family heavily invested in this. People don't like what I have to say about the immigration side. They don't.
Let's hear it, bro.
It's
Let's hear it.
well,
I want it.
so,
I want to hear
so
it.
first I want to say first and foremost, from some very important people in the federal government, especially Border Patrol that I know family wise. There is vetting happening. They are vetting these individuals. They are not getting on a bus and being shipped to New York without being vetted first. I know that's very hard for people to hear. And the alternative media, the citizen journalists have showed us a lot different. And I don't want a blanket statement this for Texas or Arizona. I'm just talking about Southern California, my boys and sisters that I know personally. There's vetting happening there, and try not to give anything away because I'm sure my brother's in here, but there's a very, very close friend of mine that a little while after this started happening, I don't know if you knew this, brother, but I uncovered a facility that was housing illegal aliens here in our hometown. It was an old golf resort, and they were putting them on buses and shipping them out, most likely to areas to yours. So I had went there with my camera, my phone, and I was going to do a citizen journal little hit piece. When I walk up to the gate, there was Marine flags and U.S. flags everywhere. So that really bothered me because I was like, okay, these guys are vets. They're going to know why I'm here and why I'm upset. Immediately when I enter the gate, a gentleman comes up to me in a golf cart, basically, what am I doing? Why am I here? Really questioning me. And I was like, hey, I'm here to find out about these immigrants and what's going on. Immediately when I say that, I look to my right, 3 gentlemen in suits start walking towards me. My phone cuts, blacks out.
Wow.
And I was live. I was live at the time. Anybody that watching it was watching it live. My phone cuts out. They walk up. They check my phone. It's off. And basically, it was some people from FEMA, some internal people that trespassed me, got me off the property, and I wasn't allowed back. Well, after that incident, the gentleman at the front gate, who was a veteran, who we have a common friend, and I didn't know that he knew me, invited me out to dinner that night with our common friend. So we have a common friend, and all 3 of us. When we sat at the table, and this was over a year ago, brother, this was over a year ago, he said, Don, from everything I've put together, do you know why they're putting these people on buses and shipping them out? And I was like, no, I can't figure it out. He's like, it's to counter the deaths in all of the areas. The is killing so many people that they're going to need these people in place to keep the economic, all of the things of society that keep moving and shaking. You're going to need these additional people. Now, again, I know for a lot of people that's really deep water, and I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of shaking my head. I'm like,
bro.
well,
That's
I'm like,
you know why? You know why, Don? You know why that's tough? Because there was always rumors back in the day with the videos that tried to scare us, saying there was going to be an ethnic cleansing, and the majority of the people that got the shots are Caucasian people. So to sell that to America when America is 73% white.
Again, it's more. Think of it like this: like I'm the conspiracy mindseted person at the table. The other 2 gentlemen are not. They are literally speaking from surface level and/or government emails, different communications that they've gotten. So they're putting together their piece on their side. So again, I'm just giving you non-conspiratorial side of what this gentleman said that
that's
he
heavy,
thinks
bro. That's fucking heavy.
Well, and why? Well, I asked him. I was like, well,
man.
what would be any evidence for that? And he said, during the vetting process, we're asking people what they specialize in. What they specialize in determines on where we ship them. So, i.e., a welder, construction workers, whatever it may be, that plays a fact on where you go. Now, when he said that part, it didn't really ring true till the next day. And I started thinking while I was driving, I was like, that can be a really deep, plan that none of us have any grips on. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about this, but it was just something that was brought into me, you know, like I said, a year into this, and to not see the migrant problem stir up. I mean, obviously Staten Island not putting up with it, not putting up with their community, and that's important to see. But what have we seen elsewhere? What have we seen from these migrant buses? What have we seen from? I think the numbers close to 12 million are now here in the United States. We haven't seen anything, and our society and our economic systems just keep rolling along. I can go to Walmart right now and, you know, pick up my goods and check out. There's something moving along here in our timeline that I can't put my thumb on. I'm not saying it's
Right.
right or
There's a
wrong.
missing piece. There's a missing piece. No,
Exactly,
I see what you're saying.
exactly. Yes, and
Um,
I don't have the answer to it, but I'm telling
right.
you, if I have to put my mind in it, black or white, is it evil? Is it good? It's weird that the migrant thing lands in the middle for me, because before it was always black. Nope, we nation with borders, we this that. You know, I understand all of that, but the migrant thing has definitely thrown me for a loop. It's much why I stay away from the subject. I don't talk about it too much because I'm just trying to let it
But
move
you
down
you
the.
you believe it's happening though. Do you all right?
Oh
So
yeah,
that you believe it
yeah,
happening and you just
yes,
don't know where it's going. And
yeah.
and listen, what was just said, I've heard, and I've
Wow.
also because I've watched videos earlier, like, and that falls more under the like, and you know the irony of the whole thing, right? The irony of the whole thing is that the country is considered white supremacy. So what? White supremacy does an ethnic cleanse and kills white people.
Yeah.
It's one big what the storyline was, and I'll say this on this that I heard, and this was over 10 years ago when I used to watch like the Project Camelot, that the powers that be, this elite group, the bad Caucasians that are Luciferians, right? And this goes back to Albert Pike. You got to do your homework. I just bought Morals and Dogma. I'm trying to get to know the enemy better. So I'm literally reading Luciferian doctrine of Albert Pike, who is a white supremacist that was part of the Confederacy. And essentially they wanted to make this breakaway elites. So you have these bad white folks that were running this country, and now they want to get everybody around that may know in the military. That's why we got to really pray for our military, man, because who knows what they were shooting them with, the higher ups, what they're shooting them with, what they're putting them through, if they're going to put them in a war. I told you yesterday, we got to monitor that. So
Yep.
essentially, they would want to get rid of this base of people that may have built this system, and now they get rid of them, and there's your ethnic cleansing. You
Yep.
then qualify. You know, there's a lot of people that feel like white people did foul shit on these Americas, so you fix that, right? People will go along with that are not white. You see what I'm saying? The people that are in
Yeah.
that mind state,
Yeah.
like we.
Yeah. No, I
So,
do.
you know, and they use this is how the guys we are talking about Satan. We are talking about Lucifer playing pigment against each other.
Yep.
And we are
Well,
now awakening to evil, and evil, really evil plays, bro.
well, and one marker that I want to just throw in there, just again, so people could do their research. You don't have to listen to what I'm saying, but one thing that scared me at the beginning of this, right, and it was a conversation that was having in the back channels, was if the V was the way that it was and it wiped out the people left would have a heavy responsibility disposing, you know, cleaning up your neighborhoods. How would your city function without intricate people, you know, people to make the machines go, so to speak, right? The sewage system, the trash, everything, all of these intricate parts of how everything ticks. How would it move and function if we had a mass die off of people? And one thing again that I just keep going back to is look at your death count in New York. Look at your death count from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to 2022. If it's tripled year over year, if you're again in a small town, for me, it's easy to see, brother, and I see it every day. We could drive by it right now. My morgue that is, you know, 2 miles from my house, it's jam packed every single night. It was never
Wow.
like that my whole entire life, my whole childhood, everything. You always knew who passed away, or it'd be, you know, because I come from a very small town. To see it jam packed every single day, there's not a single day in the last 2 years that I've drove past the morgue that it is not filled with cars in the parking lot. It starts to tick away here and help you understand, okay, if we get 5 years down the road and we've lost X amount of people, again, in New York City might be harder to track, trace, and monitor. But in small towns, if we're seeing this, if 5 years down the road you were seeing such a mass die off, is there a heavy hand to pay on the backside of that? I think so, and that's where that immigration piece kind of came into me. It was like, wow, that's something different to think about. like I said, not saying right, wrong, or I have all the answers. It's just on the ground floor. Uncle Don lives in the border here. I live on a border town. I go back and forth to Mexico constantly. There's something different happening here than what the mainstream media is definitely selling you.
There's a missing piece.
Yes.
I have to ask this question. What are your markers as an intelligent man, as a man that's looking for truth, right? Um, what are your markers that this plan went left for you, for Don himself, in your head? I know you also Jesus is your Lord and Savior, right?
Right.
All right.
First and
You believe God and you don't
Yeah.
do no idol worshiping, right? Trump is not your Lord
No.
and Savior, right? So that's all on record.
No.
Okay, right. I know this
Yeah.
already. I just want to get on record. Okay.
Thank you.
What are your markers, your personal markers that this plan is they're playing us?
That they're playing us, or that it's moving forward?
That it's
Correct.
we know that we know your points of view on the positive, but I have to ask
Okay.
the counter for Don.
Okay.
When would Don go? This went left.
For me, it's the below surface stuff. So it's, Trump says something in a speech and then takes actions. Same with the political people that I kind of think are white hats, or the good side rather. I have my line in the sands. I have my things that once it crosses that no-go zone, I'll be the first one on here, just like Sound of Freedom, just like Jason Aldean, just like Roger Stone, and so many others. There's been so many, whether they're events, actions, or people on our side, that we know they're coming with ill intentions. We know they weren't right. But for me, when it comes to the plan, like you're saying, back to ground zero, I'm at a 60,000 degree view. So it would have to be something. So, i.e., for me, a a Hollywood movie being launched that has nothing to do with the plan, back to circus and bread, and the movie theaters have a 2-mile line out the side of them, and everybody's just that overall conditioning, that programming, because that's all I can hold on to. The individual parts of the plan, if you want to stay staple to each one, that's where it gets real difficult. If you take a step outside and look in, outward in, that for me, that's how the plan's moving forward. So it would take something huge, something in the timeline that would just rattle me to where, i.e., the masses went with it, i.e., what's going on right now, they'd pull a false flag and all of a sudden we're going to war with Israel. If that really comes to fruition, if we
That's a
really
good one.
see that,
Yeah. Can I throw one at you?
yes.
What if Trump said because of the mass migration, there has to be a digital ID implemented, or you cannot go shopping, or you cannot buy stuff?
Oh, I'm
What
off.
if Trump? You're off?
Yeah, I'm off. Well, and again, I'm big enough in this to understand that there's individual players, there's individual tactics. So I would digest this for a minute, but no, I would immediately cry foul. I don't see it happening, but like you're saying,
Right, of course.
in the
Yeah, if I'm just saying
hypothetical, yep, in the
randoms. Yeah,
hypothetical,
randoms. I got another one. The one that I still didn't look into, so maybe you could educate me now. And I really appreciate this. But you guys see, I just want to take this moment. You guys see how we're having this conversation. We're giving this man pushback, and there's no fighting, there's no blocking. You see how easy this is. We're having a conversation. Yeah. I'm gonna walk away. I'm gonna agree with certain things. I'm gonna look into certain things. I'm gonna disagree with certain things. But we're still gonna, and I just employ everybody in this freedom movement to do the same. There's a movie called, Crystal, what's the name of that Christianity? Mere Christianity. It's a book called Mere Christianity, where it says it shouldn't matter as long as Jesus is your Lord and Savior. It shouldn't matter the denomination, and you shouldn't fight in public with each other. And it's very important because we all are going to the same place. There's most Republicans that don't even know about the restoration of the Republic. They don't know the difference between where we're at today and where we're going. So I don't think people should be fighting. Freedom cities. If Trump starts calling 15-minute cities freedom cities because maybe civil war has broken out and there's these cities that people that are patriotic can go run to, and they're 15-minute cities just called freedom cities, would you be on board with that?
No, not at all. No, I feel like again, I can only take these events and incidents as they happen with my filters. But right now, like if I took you as a news broadcaster giving me the spill, like, hey, go to this city if no, because that's that evil side. That's that divide. That's that, and that's not where I see the timeline moving. That's not the Operation Looking Glass. That's not everything that I've done long research on to understand where we're going collectively. So no, if Trump did anything like that, if the plan diverted that way, Uncle Don would be the first one to flip script and change hats and at least start combating that, because again, it's then and do know I would be the most upset because again that's that almost triple psyop where Sound of Freedom got me for a little while, but I quickly turned on it. But if the plan was to divert like that, I would definitely become an advocate and a warrior for the truth and for freedom and fighting against these smart cities, because it's nothing that we want.
On that note, and that's a strong note, and it's important because this is a man that's searching for truth. This is no bandwagon man. This is a man of God. Bro, I appreciate you taking the time out. Like I said privately, I know you are working, you have a family, your wife just started a new business. I love you, bro, and I appreciate everything you've done for this movement, man.
No, and Fuzz, I love you too, brother. Like I said, this is awesome for me to come full circle. Because we've all been trying to find our footing, find our place in this battlefield, especially in this digital content front. I'm excited that you're doing this podcast, brother. I think it's great. You have the right demeanor, you have the right guests, the right conversations. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to be here. I didn't get the triple digits. I'm episode 9, so that's awesome. But I just wanted more, kind of implore everyone out there to not be afraid to do the research, not be afraid to come on here. Beautiful. It's easy with Brother Fuzz, but there's a lot of people that they're going to come one-sided with their thought, with their programming. Don't be afraid to butt up against them, have a debate, have some heavy conversations. Like my brother says, I hope the conversations end well, but I've been part of debates where they go south, but nevertheless, stand on that soapbox of truth, stand and make sure your voice is heard, because the evil side is making sure to do everything they can to get us off the battlefield. They don't want us to play. They don't want us to even see it down. They want us off the field. They want us to turn away, put our tails between our legs and walk off. So I just implore each and every one of you to just keep engaging with this narrative. The physical world is hard to change. We can run for our city councils. We can help with the school boards, and all of these things really matter. But this narrative that's spun on this Black Mirror, evil's very upset that we figured out and that we're taking time to do it, much like you see my brother with his podcast every day, him and Crystal doing amazing. We're taking the time to fight the narrative in a game that we're not professionals in. We're rookies, but we're doing a hell of a job. And I implore each and every one of you, do the research. Yes, sometimes it's not fun to dig into things that I'm talking about or the information, but it's there if you dig for it. Sorry about that, brother. I got dogs barking like crazy.
Nah, you're good, man. Don, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And can we count on you to come on again? We because it seems like me and you go on and on. This is great. We got to do this again.
I'll gladly be on anytime. I apologize. I feel like I was all over the place. I had a lot going on today, but thank you, bro, for always taking the time. I want people to know, from the personal phone calls to the text messages, bro, you've been a big part in keeping me in this fight and just helping me along the truth way, bro, the truth path rather. So that iron sharpens iron, bro. I appreciate you. I thank you for everything. God bless you and your loved ones. Miss Crystal there. You guys are doing a great job. And I can't thank you enough, brother. It's the stuff that, like I've said before, history might not remember our names, but I'll always remember you, brother. I'll always remember all the fighting, the good fighting we did to fight this narrative and fight evil. So thank you, brother.
I appreciate you, bro. Episode 9 with Don Q, and we're out.